We're in the middle of fall and edging into winter, and you know what that means? We're in cold and flu season. One way that my family likes to stay on top of keeping our immunities up is through bone broth. I also like having this on hand just in case any of us get the stomach flu, which we used to get that every year. Now we're lucky to kind of, I don't know, maybe every other year. But this is awesome for when you're dealing with any kind of ailment. Your body kind of craves the nutrients that's in the chicken broth. So I'm going to teach you how to make that. If you don't know what bone broth is, it is basically a concentrated version of chicken stock. It simmers longer, and what you end up with is this, we call it golden elixir. What you come up with is, or end up with, is this really rich golden liquid that is drinkable. You can use it in sauces. It's perfect now that we're going into like the Thanksgiving season. You can make a big batch of it, and you've got it for your stuffing, for basting your turkey, any of that kind of stuff. Excuse me. I like to use it for us to just straight up drink. A lot of times in the evenings, I'll get it out of a mason jar out of the fridge, and I'll either microwave it, or if it's, you know, myself and someone else, I will put it on in a little saucepan on the stove and heat it up. So anyway, I will show you how to make it. I use a Costco chicken. I'm going to be using the meat for a soup tonight, so I kept the bones and I put it straight up in here. When I am making meals with chicken in it, what I do is I keep a bag in the freezer, and when we're done using the bones, I just throw it in the bag so that I can use it for bone broth later. You want to use a good quality chicken. I like using Costco chicken because they are good quality, but if you want to take it a step up, a notch up, oh, excuse me. If you want to take it another step up, go ahead and get it organic, free-range chicken from not Costco, I'm sorry. Costco has them too, but Trader Joe's or Sprouts or even Whole Foods. And the great thing when you buy a chicken like that is you can usually use it to cook beforehand, make a meal out of it, gorgeous sheet pan roast chicken or something like that. And then you save the bones and you use it for bone broth, which I feel like even though it's more money to buy the organic chicken, it makes it so much worth it because it's dual purpose for you. So I have the bones to my chicken in here, and I'm going to be throwing in an onion that I kind of just roughly chopped. I will be honest with you, I in the past have I've washed the onion and just left the skin on and thrown it in the pot. Because there's a lot of flavor that comes from the onions, from the skin. So I'm also going to be throwing in a celery, and I washed it, but I also left the leaves on. It's really easy when you're making bone broth like this to just do it in a hurry, because most of the things that you're putting in here don't need a whole lot of prep. Now I have some water. You want to use filtered water when you do this, just to kind of add to the purity of the bone broth itself and the integrity of it. And so after I do that, I do put a little bit of salt in it, but most of the time when I start a batch of bone broth, I don't really know what it's going to be used for. If it were used just for drinking, I would put salt in to taste. But if I'm going to be using it for sauces or, you know, anything that I'm adding bone broth to, that might already be salted, I don't like to put a lot of salt in it. So I'm just going to be, I'm going to not salt this liberally, but just to kind of bring out a little bit of the flavor. I would say maybe a teaspoon, not a ton. And then a few cracks of pepper just for flavor. And then some garlic. Now, if John were the one making the bone broth, he would put multiple heaping spoonfuls of garlic in this, but I don't like my pores smelling like garlic, so I'm just gonna put a good tablespoon in there. All right, at any point also you could put any kind of herbs that you have on hand. I will be putting in probably some oregano into this, but parsley would be awesome. Also, you could kind of fashion it towards a certain flavor that you might like for your bone broth. You could put bell peppers in it, which bell peppers give it kind of a spicy flavor, and I don't mean hot spicy, I mean it just kind of gives it a little something. I want to keep mine a little on the plain side, but the bell peppers are awesome because they have so much vitamin C in them. They have more vitamin C in them than an orange, believe it or not. So I'm also going to use my Bragg's apple cider vinegar. I'm going to give it a little shake. I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons in my bone broth, and I'm just going to let it sit for probably about 20 minutes, and that helps bring out more of the vitamins and minerals out of your bones. So that's good. And I will close the top. If I can do it right. I can never ever do this right. There we go. And set it to sealing. So what's so great about the Instant Pot is I've been making bone broth for a long time, for probably about 5 years. And when I would make it at home before I had my Instant Pot, I would use a crock pot, and it would take a minimum of 2 days. It'd take a minimum of 24 hours, but like it could take as long as 4 days, depending on when I wanted to pull it out. And throughout that time, I would just add water to it as I went. Which doesn't seem like a big deal, but you know, your house starts to smell a lot like chicken broth, which, you know, in the middle of the day that smells really good, but I was pregnant during the time and I would wake up to a house smelling like chicken broth, and it was just not good for morning sickness. So we got an Instant Pot about a year ago, and we got it specifically for making bone broth. Now obviously I've used it a ton more, but it's a really, really great thing to make bone broth. Okay, now that this has been sitting for about 20 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and set my Instant Pot. Ooh. And I'm gonna do manual, and I'm gonna set it for 90 minutes. You can do more too, I've done more, but I feel like 90 minutes is a good, I feel like 90 minutes is a good time for it to be in. And so in 90 minutes, the timer will go off, and I will show you exactly what you're left with. All right, we are here 90 minutes later, aside from the pressurizing, of course. And don't be alarmed if it takes longer for your Instant Pot to come to pressure. Once you have done everything, there's a lot of stuff in here, so it takes a while for it to come up to pressure. Now we're gonna do this delicately, because this can be kind of a little tricky. As far as depressurizing. You are more than welcome to let your Instant Pot sit and depressurize naturally. But if you decide to go this route that I am right now, what you're going to want to do is just carefully take a rag and just open up the spout. Woo. So what you're left with is this gorgeous, golden, delicious bone broth. And it's so good to sip when it's cold out, to keep your immunities up. It's great to sip on when you're sick and not feeling good, or maybe you have the stomach flu. This actually is what John lived on for a little while when he was dealing with some leaky gut symptoms. So it can totally help with that too. I'm gonna go ahead and leave some articles on why bone broth is so healthy for you in the description box, so go ahead and check that out also. If you found this helpful at all, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new, go ahead and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you again.